From Wispolitics in Madison, you're listening to Capital Chats.
Hi, this is Abigail Levins from Wispolitics with another Capital Chats podcast brought to you by Spectrum. I'm here with my colleague, Kate Morton, to talk about an interview she did with Representative Margaret Arney.
Yeah, that's right, Abigail. So we talked a little bit about her time as a freshman lawmaker. It hasn't been too long, but she told me a little bit about how she got into public service and some of the things that she hopes to accomplish while she's in office.
Great, let's get into the interview.
Great. Well, thank you, Representative Arney, for joining me this morning.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, so I think to get us started off, so I know you're representing Eastern Wauwatosa and Western Milwaukee in the assembly. Maybe you could tell me, and you're a freshman lawmaker, maybe you could tell me a little bit more about yourself and your background to get us started.
Great. Well, I got into this actually it's kind of a full circle story. Um, I was born and raised in Milwaukee, and I went to Rufus King High School. And as part of my growing up, my parents chose Holy Angels Grade School for myself and my sisters, even though when I was 6, we moved to the east side. So I lived in one block into Milwaukee in the Shorewood area, very near UWM. And my sisters and I would ride our bikes on the UWM campus. And, my dad was a student at UWM for his graduate degree. And, so we grew up in the central city with our church and school community. And in fact, Holy Angels was part of something called the Central City Catholic Schools, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was Afrocentric before Afrocentric was a word. It was really a great grounding and environment, and very lefty liberal Black Catholics. It was amazing. It was awesome. But every day we actually took the city bus back then when that was safe for kids. And I was born in 1969, so I had this great 70s and 80s childhood. And so but the bus would go from all white, picking us up at Edgewood and Downer, people on the east side would know that, and go to all black and as we got off at 12th and Capitol to go to grade school, and then later 18th and Capitol to go to high school, and then 40th and Capitol when I worked for the Milwaukee office of State Senator Gary George, who and that's my full circle moment. He and his family were part of the Holy Angels grade school community. And I looked up to him and I thought, oh, wow, he's a state senator. What is that? And I was kind of amazed by that. And when I was graduated from high school and went to college, I needed a college job. And his mom said, oh, call Gary, he'll give you a job. So, so that was my first experience working in the Capitol. So now being back there, it's like I didn't think my life would bring me back there. In fact, when I worked for Gary, I decided that I was pretty overwhelmed by the politics part of politics. I really like what government does to help people, like clean water and good roads and public education and public transit and all those things. Those were the things that I thought were government. My dad was a social worker. He worked for the county. My cousin was a firefighter. He was a bridge operator for a while. My cousin was a bridge operator. I have a lot of nurses, a lot of human service professionals. And so I thought that's what government was going to be about. And that was what was exciting to me about it. And so to see this politics side, it was like, oh no, I don't like this. I don't like how this feels. I don't like how people talk. I don't like what they're thinking about. So I actually made a big choice in my life and chose to go into administrative social work. And I ended up going to Chicago. I went to the University of Chicago. And I worked there. I got my master's in social service administration, met my husband. And then he and I, when we thought about how we wanted to live our lives and raise our family, we decided to come back to this area. So I didn't want to live in my hometown, in my neighborhood, and feel like I was, a kid again. So we went to, this place that was so far away on the west side. It was the Wauwatosa. It was like a place that we'd go to have an adventure with my family because it was so far away from the east side. And now it's like, oh, it's 20 minutes. It's not that big of a
Yeah.
deal. And so we got settled here in the community of Wauwatosa, and that love for public service kind of rose up again for me. I ran for alderperson in 2010, and I ran because I wanted to get involved, and I didn't really think through what that was going to mean. And so it was 2010, and when my opponent won, and she was on the Common Council, and then Act 10 hit, and I was like, oh my God, that was a great miss. So I spent the next 10 years getting really involved in Wauwatosa in the uh, the neighborhood associations. I became the president of the Neighborhood Association Council. I joined the Senior Commission, all interested in what our senior community needed. And I just kept doing more and getting more deeply involved. And in 2016, we had a tragic death at the hands of a police officer. And it just broke my heart. I mean, it was awful. And I got together with several of my neighbors, and we put together an organization called Tosa Together. And we said, we need to respond to the family that lost their child. And we need to step into this silence that was the lack of response of the Wauwatosa city government. And so our first event was to have a listening session, a respectful listening session for the family to connect them directly to their peers in Wauwatosa. And it was a risk, and we did a lot of good things to facilitate it. And it was great. We had a little under 100 people come. The people were very, very respectful. The family felt heard for the first time. And we're like, wow, we really want to keep doing this. And we didn't want to be one issue. We wanted to address, it's like, what are what can we as a community do to respond better to these kind of challenges? And this is 2016. And so by 2019, Tosa Together had led the charge to establish an Equity and Inclusion Commission. And so the Equity and Inclusion Commission was seated and was going by the time 2020 came around, which was when we really needed it. I mean, we really needed a place for people to come and say, this is what we feel, this is what's wrong, this is what we need you to hear. And I was the vice chair of that organization, of that commission, and it was a great opportunity to serve. And I'm really blessed too. So I actually, from there, the person who had won the aldermanic seat invited me to run again because she was stepping off the council. And so me and the chair of the commission, Sean Lowe, both ran for elective office, and we became the first two people of color ever to be elected in Wauwatosa in 2022. So
Yeah,
and then I got a call. It was January of 2023, and our sitting representative called me, and I'm like, oh, great, I get to have coffee with our state representative. I wonder what he wants to talk about. And it turns out he was looking around for community leaders who might be interested in running for his seat, as he was taking on the prospect of running for city attorney. And so I took that suggestion in, and I was like, oh, well, okay. So I learned more about it, and I thought, yeah, this is really my next step. So I'm actually holding both. I'm completing my 4-year term as an alderperson in Wauwatosa, and now being an assembly person as well.
Right. So you've been involved in public service for a while now. I guess,
Yeah,
how are you?
it's actually not been that long, but it's been very eventful.
Sure. Yeah, so what are the main things that you want to accomplish when you're in office? Like, what are your top issues?
Well, my top 3 things are continuity with the good work that people who've been before me have brought into this role. Evan, but also there's a legacy from actually Lloyd Barbie from the 70s, who took on the Assembly District 18 when it was really formed to be a voice for African American population in Milwaukee at the state level in the 70s. So to really be in continuity with that good work, to build on connections throughout the district. We have a very intense historical color line that runs from the border of Wauwatosa on Milwaukee. And so to erode that sense of division and to know that we are really one, and that we prosper together. And then to build community at every opportunity to lift up and build up the amazing community resources and organizations that we have. And so those are my 3 intentions: the continuity, connection, and community. And specifically in terms of a legislative agenda to support state resources coming to our neighborhoods and our schools in ways that my constituents can see and feel. So that's resources for our schools, resources for our streets, resources for our neighborhood organizations, recent connections to state grants, state policies, state programs, wherever appropriate. And then and it's very aligned with everything that the Democrats platform is: expanding healthcare access, particularly right now, the expansion of Medicare for postpartum women, um, and defending our environment. I believe that climate change is a root issue for a lot of the conflict that we have, and that we need to be positioned for resilience for ourselves, but also for receiving new people into the area that may be coming from other parts of the world, parts of the country that are being afflicted by the, the negative results of climate change. And really being here and being ready for what comes. This is a very volatile time, especially with federal funding. And federal funding is the source of a lot of the state funding for those resources that I just talked about. So working in coordination with my fellow electeds here in Wisconsin and with especially Tammy Baldwin's office to make sure that we're navigating the troubled waters as well as we can.
Yeah, there definitely is a lot of uncertainty around the federal funding right now.
It's deeper than uncertainty. It is it's unprecedented what's been going on. The seizure of the mechanisms of payments of grants that have been contracted. It's not a just uncertainty. It is really violent what's happening. And that normal people just trying to do their jobs have been interrupted in this important work that they've been charged to do, that they've been hired to do. And the breakdown of the essential social contract is it's hard to find words for it, but I don't want to minimize it by saying it's uncertain. It's uncertain if there's a heavy storm. This is bad. We are in a bad situation.
Yeah, I guess, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap things up on your time in office?
Oh, just that how much I love the district. The district is amazing. I have such amazing neighborhoods, starting from the east with Wauwatosa Village to Martin Drive and Story Hill. Um, there's been, you know, people organized. The Sherman Park Neighborhood Association is 50 years old now. The Sherman Park, the historic Sherman Park area is so cool. And Washington Park, we just had a opening of the new building for the Urban Ecology Center. I it, I'm hopefully soon going to be putting together like a little tour of the district, so people
Okay.
can, from within the district and outside the district, can come and just experience the amazingness. I'm so proud of the district. I love the district, and it's such a privilege to be in this position of service.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today to chat about it.
Great. Thank you for having me. I'll come back anytime.
Thanks for listening to this WisPolitics Capital Chats podcast brought to you by Spectrum. If you want to learn more about Wisconsin representatives, head to our website at wispolitics.com. I'm Abigail Levins.
I'm Kate Morton.
And thanks for listening.